Hello and welcome back to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the Message Boards, joined by the best host that money can buy, but which we do not currently possess. Will Masisak, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben, and Korey Karbowsky, you know him as Korey 39. You know, guys, if we think hard enough and ask Santa much, we might get some funding for this show. No, I don't think so. That won't work either, but worth a
Probably
shot.
not.
Just like we all asked Santa for an early Christmas present this past week, and we sure as hell didn't get it. Pittsburgh Steelers lost again to the Baltimore Ravens, which makes it 2 losses in a row in our brutal 10-day stretch of games. We predicted it would be a gauntlet. We have received the gauntlet. Let's dive in, kind of talk about this past Baltimore game. One thing that will jump off the screen for me right away is the Steelers were a tad unlucky this past Saturday. We had a chance at 3 fumbles and went right over the top of them, only for Baltimore players to receive them. So I sure thought, boy, if just maybe one of those bounces the other way could have changed the course at any different, at any point in that game. Would have made it just giving the Steelers another chance or something that they didn't have. But really what it comes down to the end of the day is, we had 2 turnovers, which really hurt us. The Russell Wilson fumble on the 3-yard line, great scramble, but you got to secure the ball. And then the Russell Wilson pick six, boy, that was an awful throw. That's probably the first really awful throw. Really, I think we've seen Russell Wilson throw. So, it's not the norm by any means, but it sucks just because it felt like we had our chances, and then those 2 plays just really killed any sense of momentum or chance we had to really, kind of keep it close. But what are your guys' thoughts about the game, Korey?
Oh yeah, I'll go first. I'll own it. I was wrong. I've been riding the Steelers can just beat the Ravens no matter what train until it died, and it died. So now I actually have to do some analysis for these games going forward. Hopefully it's next year instead of the playoffs. But I mean it's we got thumped 34-17. One of y'all was probably close to predicting this. I feel like this was in the range of one or both of your guesses.
Will was pretty close to being dead on.
I thought Jeremy got their score and I got the Steelers score. I think that's what happened.
I think that's right. I think I said 34 to like 13.
No, I think you said the high. I was going to say I can't remember. 34, and I had like 20. I don't know, 27. I forget what we had actually. I don't remember. But it's put this way.
Yeah.
It's not the thing you want to be right about if you're doing analysis for a Pittsburgh Steelers show.
No.
The score of the blowout loss. Sorry, Korey, go ahead, man.
Just one thing I felt pretty vindicated on was I was watching this game with my friend. I went over to his place. We were flipping between the Steelers and the playoff games, which didn't get flipped to as often. Texas State Championship came on later. Magic Battle. It's a good day of sports, especially a really good day of football.
Crazy day of football, yeah.
He said, D2 National Championship, FCS semifinals, all sorts of stuff. And he goes, man, has Najee Harris always been that slow?
Damn.
Like, good to know that it wasn't just. It was actually, he picked up like 8 yards on the play. Might have been as long of the game. But he was like, man, he's that slow. And I think that's just things where if we want to be a team that runs the ball, this is not me signing off on drafting a running back in round 1, by the way, but A, we need a better quarterback if we want to compete with the big dogs.
Yeah.
And B, if we do insist on running the ball how we are, then we need a better running back. So it's like we're going to need one of the two for a better offense next year. 2 of 2 would be nice, but that's probably not going to happen.
Hey, Korey, if you put it on that list of Santa, he'll probably tell you no anyway.
Ward.
Yeah, right.
Well, first off, you guys, neither of you really understand this yet, but as growing old is very similar to being Najee Harris on a football field. It comes at you slowly and gradually makes yards. And it's not necessarily like you look in the mirror every day, you don't think I'm old. It's like it gets you slowly, and you don't realize how differently you look until you see a picture of like what 15 years ago looked. And I think that's the thing with outsiders seeing Najee Harris play running back is, yeah, if you watch him every game, it doesn't seem that bad. And then you watch other teams and you're like, oh. So I mean, that's not only true for running backs, but that's kind of true for even like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, which I think is, I mean, both sides of the ball, they really lack speed. They're working on the trenches and they were working on building the trenches up. And yeah, the edge rushers have some juice. Maybe even linebackers have more juice this year than they have, but we're not a particularly quick group overall. I think if you saw, the basics of the defense and how they compare on the field speed. Speaking of Najee Harris and the Pittsburgh Steelers running game, here's a great set of stats. It came to us from Mike DeFabo, who's one of those, guys that covers the team. The Steelers rushing attempts, they are second in the NFL. Rushing yards per game, they are 11th in the NFL. Rushing yards per attempt, they are 31st in the NFL, right? So this is a team that wants to run and does run a lot. In fact, they even had Justin Fields for a third of their season as the quarterback running the ball. And so when you put that all together, it's like yes, you can run the ball a lot if you run smart situationally, if you're efficient in doing it, and if it's only a component of the multiple threats that you offer all over the field. But this is, I think, an essential problem with this team is they're not exactly one-dimensional, but they're predictable. And over the course of a whole season, like for a game or two against teams that don't see them that much, like not from the division, from other places, yeah, I think it can be, oh shit, we gotta strap it on. You're gonna run hard at us. But it isn't like an offensive attack that you watch the film and you're like, oh my God, how are we going to stop this?
Yeah, no, I don't think we've been able to say that for like 4 years now. So, totally feel you there. Like you said, I think it'll be a lot to ask for an upgrade at both, Korey, this offseason, because honestly, I'd be shocked if Russell Wilson's not brought back. I mean, he's not, what we need, obviously, long term or to really compete with the young guns of this league, of the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons, the Josh Allens and stuff. But at least he's been able to like push the ball where it's been needed to go for the most part this year. He's much better than Justin Fields was in that matter of respect. I mean, shoot, we've hit 30 points, I think, 3 times, with him. And it's like, shoot, that's way better than anything we've been doing last 2 or 3 years. So I'd find it hard to believe we don't have Russell Wilson back, but I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point that it's going to be the Jaylen Warren show, probably, as should be back as a restricted free agent, and then probably drafting a guy to start over him. Honestly, Jalen's a very good change of pace back. He's very quick. Honestly, I love the way he runs. Very quick to the hole, can really pop one off. But I definitely think if this is a style of offense we want to run, we have to get guys that are more 1A, 1B rather than just 2A and 2B. It's like I'm not sure, Warren can really shoulder a load for a full year yet. But I'd rather at least give him a shot than what we keep doing with Najee constantly. But
I mean, you actually need better offensive linemen and tight ends too. I mean, if, as you said, the way you framed it, if we're gonna run this offense, then you got to have more talent then to run it and make it work.
Better tight end. We're paying a guy. We just extended a tight end. What are you talking about, Will?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
by the way,
our tight end room for a while here.
Speaking of tight ends, that 2 yard out to the tight end on a obvious, like it's a play they telegraph that it's become the play in the Arthur Smith offense that you can see coming a mile away, where it's a half roll to the other, fake run to one side, half roll to the other side, and either run or throw to the tight end if the outside defender comes down on you. And that was a play that ended up being the interception, pick 6, right? Mm. I think they run that play so much that as a quarterback, maybe as a quarterback, you're just in you're in automaton mode, and you start throwing it before you even look at coverage. You're just like, oh, I'm going to roll out. Oh, the guy's coming up on me. I throw it. And then as soon as you let go of it, you're like, oh crap, like that, there's a guy there. Mm-hmm. So I feel like anything that you run that much, that's best case scenario going to get you 2 yards and a broken tackle for maybe 5 or 6. feels like a dumb play risk reward wise. Like throwing to the edge for 2 yards is so dumb when you're talking about a team that won't throw more than 5 yards down the middle of the field because it's too dangerous. It's like at least there's some reward if you hit it right? Whereas this a 2 yard out to the tight end is like the dumbest play in your playbook. I just wanted to say that about the interception. Now I'm gonna leave it to you guys.
Yeah, well, the other bad part about the interception was that ball was way behind him too. If that had been like, kind of, I mean, what Russell Wilson likes to do, kind of rainbow drop that over the other shoulder, we're probably looking at that small yard gain like you're talking about. But because that ball was so far behind where it needed to be, I mean, shoot,
Yeah.
I think I could have picked that off if I,
No, it
but
was
I don't know if I
also
could run with him. But
it was hey, just if Christmas dinner was at the goal line, you might have made it.
yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Been charging for that turkey. I don't know what you all are having for Christmas, but yeah, the other thing I kind of want to touch on, because I thought about it when you said it, Will, the lack of speed on defense is just so apparent. Outside of some of our younger players at like linebacker, we really don't have a ton of speed. Joey Porter Jr., he's fast, but he's more of a lumbering type of guy. He's not like super quick, and it's like right now I'm not even sure we have a ton of quick on the defensive line. Like I thought Keanu Benton was gonna like take a bigger leap than honestly the one he had this year and kind of be more of a guy that's just becomes like unblockable, and that just hasn't happened yet. So this year, so I correct me if I'm wrong. Is this his second season? Help me out.
I think we're on two. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's still a young guy. Hopefully, he keeps evolving his game and gets better. But it's not like Cameron Hayward's going to find the elixir of fountain of youth here, take a swig and be like, oh, I'm ready for a playoff run or anything like that. So we just need quicker and faster across the board.
I don't know. Can I ask you guys? I'll start with Korey, but can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you feel like this, like if you were the GM and you had the coaches, like the owner you have the owner's ear and you can work on the coaches and get them to agree with you, could you fix this team in one off season to make them not a playoff team because they're always obviously already like a playoff team, but to make them a real contender for a Super Bowl? Like if you just with the situation that they have, the money that they have, the picks that they have coming up, and the roster that they have currently, could you make this a Super Bowl team by next year?
I think the answer is no doubt, but it depends how long you want to be one. I think if you want to be one next year and the year after, I think you could do that. But good luck 3, 4, 5 years from now. I think then again, you could maybe trade up for, we love Cam Ward. Let's just use him as an example. Pour your chips in, go get Cam Ward, get some young receivers, just reinvent the offense. It's going to take a year or two to kind of settle in. Najee or TJ Watt will be older. Cam Hayward will probably be on his way out. But then you're looking at a legitimate window starting the year after, like that year 2, year 3, year 4. So I think it's yes, but that would have to require them to commit to going for it in a window, which they don't want to do. They want to try and sustain success. So,
and I'm cocky enough to say yes, I could, but with just the way how all of us like to attack the draft and or whatever. Like I felt like several months ago I put together like a good plan for the next offseason where Russell Wilson gets extended, George Pickens gets extended, we cut some dead weight, free up some money, because I mean the Steelers are looking at like 80 or so million next year in free agency. I think now a lot of that's going to go to Russell Wilson, and a lot of that would go to George Pickens. So it's bringing Russell Wilson back for 2 or 3 years, probably a 3-year deal, with the last year kind of being an option deal for both sides, kind of off the books, giving George Pickens probably, 29, 32, between 29 and 32 million. That's just kind of the going market rate right now. I don't know. He kind of feels like that guy that might give us a little bit of a headache there, just as far as an extension goes, just with the numbers and wanting to be, in the top 5, for sure, and all that. Yeah. So Jamar Chase, please get your deal done before we have to deal with George Pickens. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, I'm cocky enough to say, I think I could make good enough picks throughout the draft. Let's say we go get a number 2 receiver to really complement this offense, to really take the pressure off the ground game to a degree. Offensive line wise, I think we have the guys there. I do. I think they can be good enough. Let's put it that way. If we get Troy Fatanu back, um, I don't think Dan Moore will be back. Just the way the money's going to fall. As much as he's been better, I don't know if he's one of those guys that comes back or not. I think you kick Broderick over to left tackle and give him a shot over there, maybe Fatanu, whichever one you want to try over there. Just because you got to spend money other places, or whatever. I would potentially, I brought it up on the show before, but I might go look at some of these teams that are struggling and looking to rebuild and go get a Dexter Lawrence or Jeffrey Simmons type of guy, big time difference maker on the D line. That might help with some problems there, on the ground game. Still have Cameron Hayward potentially. I'd cut Larry Ogunjobi. The dude's just a sieve and run support, and he's just an okay pass rusher. So that would free up probably 10 million, I think, is his base next year. So it's like that would free up some money to go after some guys too. But I don't know. I'm cocky enough to think that I think we could be there, because I think Dante Jackson will be back on a decent deal. He's not going to break the bank, and he's been solid. So who knows?
Well, well, there's a couple things about this. You guys both sort of, I think, accepted the idea that this team is not so far off, that there are changes you could make that are like, it's kind of like, I think in my head, what are the changes that you could make that would really make a huge difference? And I noticed neither one of you mentioned coaching or scheme or approach, because to me, if you're keeping the same coaching and scheme and approach, and I'm dead serious about this, I'm not sure how many guys you'd have to add to that soup to make me feel like they were really a contender. Because, like, yes, in September we're going to think on paper and all those new guys and there's new energy, they look great. Defense is playing lights out, but I feel like the defense just they can't play it. They can't sustain that kind of energy for a 20-game season. And we get to like this point of the season that they just don't have the same, like this defense does not have the same juice they had in September or early October. They just look like they're in the end of the line, a little bit like that 2007 Steelers team that faded, back down to the playoffs. And I just wonder if it's, at that year they were talking about how Mike Tomlin came in and all these hard practices and training camp and during the season, and that just wore them out. Might have been true, but if your main, strategy is to crank your team's emotions and belief, I think maybe that's the thing that's hard to sustain. Harder to sustain than even physically is that emotional thing that seems to carry them. That's how they won big regular season games in this past stretch where they haven't won playoff games, but they kind of like muster that for a short period of time or early in the season. It's going to sustain it for a little while, but it seems to have a shelf life.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point. It's hard to maintain that same mental edge for that long. I mean, I think that's why you see teams throughout the league, though, go through stretches where they're not winning and stuff too, though. So, but I hear you.
I mean, their record is better than their talent. Would you guys agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we would love to say that, hopefully the scheme changes and we get more aggressive and we, are on the field longer on offense and stuff. But I think we're stuck with what we're stuck with. So,
yeah. I mean, the thing is, if what I said is true, that they're better than their record is better than their talent, then that means you got a long way to go in acquiring talent to make enough of a difference to get you over the hump.
mm-hmm.
Like, will they be? I mean, I could predict right now they're going to be a good team next year, and they're going to contend for the division, and they're going to, find their way to a playoff spot probably, no matter what's happening. Even though I don't have any idea who the quarterback is, could be Sam Darnold for all I know. But it just feels like to imagine that they're going to be better than that with what they will be able to do in this offseason. That's the part that why we carry around some stress about the Steelers in September when they're looking good, but we're unsure about the way they're crafting wins. This is what it's all about. It's like, what is the way out of this? It feels like a dream you can't get out of.
I hear you there, because I was kind of, fooling around with the Pro Football Mock Draft Simulator the other day. And the two guys I absolutely love in this draft class are two guys we won't be able to get unless we trade up for them, and that's Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. He's just hell on wheels, Energizer bunny, excuse me. Impossible to stop with just how ferocious he is. And then the other guy is, if we were to go more offensive, is go trade up and get to Torrin McMillan from Arizona. Because if there's ever another wide receiver that would look really good in this style of offense, it would be him, because he's big, he's physical, he run blocks, he's elusive, fantastic hands. It'd be like George Pickens 2.0 on the other side.
Better.
Better. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but it would be interesting or whatever, because that's kind of the approach that the Bengals took with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins or whatever, except Higgins was a second round prospect, as to where in this upcoming draft class, I don't know if there are a ton of wide receivers that are going to blow your socks off in this next draft. I'm not saying there's not a few good ones out there. I'm just saying there's not a lot of day one hit the field, you automatically have to respect that I'm on the field type of guys. And that's what McMillan brings to the table. So we wanted to go offensively and be like, hey, you know what? We're going to try to score more to keep up with teams and actually try to attack. Okay. If not, and we'd go, no, we need to keep improving the defense, that I trade up for Mason. But the problem is that's going to take our first, our second, and probably a minimum of second next year. Because we're going to be trading up 10 spots to get that.
It depends where they finish. If they, if they more or less lose out, then they're going to end up at 19 or 20.
Sure.
Maybe you can move up to 10 with a first and a third or something,
Yeah, I mean, what was the trade that we had to do for Devin Bush? Because that's probably the area we'd be targeting, That
was a first and a third, wasn't it?
It was a first, a second, and a third the next.
Oh, it was all three, yeah.
Yeah, it was 3 picks. So
it this
that was worth it?
Buzz of us trading up for a receiver, or was that last year? Like this last year or the year before, where they talked about us trading up for a receiver?
I don't remember. I mean, there was maybe us talking about trading up for Brian Thomas or something, but yeah, I don't know. Too much draft talk. I mean, we're in the playoff hunt, and and it's like, weirder things have happened. I'll bet if we were on a Giants podcast, the year that they sneaked, into the playoffs and won the Super Bowl, there would have been worse. I mean, their situation that year, just for optimism's sake, the Giants' situation that year was their offensive line was hideous. They couldn't do anything. Their quarterback was like, had a career below 500 record. They had never done anything in the playoffs at all. And then they went on one of the great playoff runs in history from the bottom. So it's not impossible. And it's like, I don't know. In a way, it's because I'm less excited about for the Steelers mock draft next year, because I don't see this path out of it through the draft. Whereas some years you're like, if they just got a corner, they're over the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, at this point, they're still alive, so good for them. I mean, that is job number one after all.
Yeah, mentioning alive, they actually played much sooner than what we normally deal with in the week. That's right, Steeler fans, you get to see your team on Christmas. Yeah. And I'm sure they love it too, with their 2 days of rest in between these games. So
you get to see them on Netflix.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yes,
Netflix
exactly. Unless if you're in Pittsburgh, it'll be on your regular television. But I don't mind the idea of games being on Netflix or Amazon. I just mind the idea if their interface doesn't work and you have no other options. But
yeah, I totally hear you there. But unfortunately, we're playing a team that has just not found a way to lose. It's crazy, we get the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day. Thank God we're not in Arrowhead. I'll say that would make the game a lot tougher. But I don't know what it is. The Chiefs just have like some black magic going on right now. They just can't find ways to lose games. They get, and usually I'm not the guy that likes to do this, but it's like, boy, do they get some great calls in their favor, like all the time. It feels like, and it's getting annoying now. At first I was like, no, it's not that big of a deal, but it's like, oh my God, every single week they're getting a call in their favor. It's just kind of ridiculous.
That's how it feels that's how other teams in the league view the Steelers,
That's true. That's true.
They think, oh, those guys just they're so lucky. Or like this guy got hurt before they played them, etc. It's like, these
Mhm.
things are, I don't know. I do really think that it all evens out in the end, and it's especially tiresome this year. But I can't argue that they have seemed to come out on the right end of things a couple of times.
Mhm. Well, the good news heading into Christmas Day is that the majority of Steelers are fully healthy. The only two that did not practice today are Joey Porter Jr. He's still dealing with the knee injury. The other one is Ben Skoranek. Other than that, everyone practiced fully today. Deshaun Elliott, full practice. Great news. Dante Jackson, full practice. Great news. So it's like we're getting our secondary back outside of Joey Porter Jr. I know Skronek's been playing, and he's had a nice little role, but at the end of the day, he is like our fourth or fifth wide receiver. So, I understand he's out there probably more than we'd like him to be at times, but he is a good blocker. He's a hard nosed football player, so he's been playing well. So can't discount that, especially on special teams. He's been great on special teams, but it's nice to see the Steelers finally getting healthy towards the stretch. And then I brought up the Chiefs one here too. There's nothing official out yet, but Chris Jones did not practice today. He's dealing with a calf injury, which if he were not to play, that would obviously be a big deal because Chris Jones is still Chris Jones at the end of the day. He's still a top 5 defensive tackle, absolutely pass rushing terror. Go ahead, Will.
He's top 5, but he ain't 2. That's the best defensive player in the league when he's happening. So
yeah. And then Shamari Connor, their nickel kind of safety guy, he's dealing with a concussion. So it'll be interesting to see whether he did not play this past week, so he didn't clear concussion protocol for this past week. But it'll be interesting to see if he clears it in time for this game because it's a short, he only has a few days to clear it before he can get on it. And then there was one more injury. DJ Humphries, an offensive tackle they signed. He is still dealing with an injury too. So I'll kind of start off matchups really quick, but this might be the one week where I think our pass rushers could really feast on these guys because, Jawan Taylor is a freaking flag machine or whatever. It's like you could go the casino and win every time you go against that guy sometimes. But then on the other side, they've started a variety of players. They've started Kingsley Samatia at the beginning of the year, and he didn't cut it. Right now, they're playing Joe Tooney, who is supposed to be their starting left guard out at left tackle because of the issues they've been having. Also with Wanya Morris, another guy who they've thrown out there who has not looked good. They hope to sign DJ Humphries to kind of alleviate the concerns out there, but he's been hurt. So I think our edge rushers have a real big chance to really put some pressure on Pat Mahomes, especially if he's a little bit gimpy coming off still the ankles injury that he sustained this past, or was that 2 weeks ago? I think that was 2 weeks ago.
He looked fine last week.
Did he? I did not get a chance to check to catch that, but you never know. If we put that type of pressure on him, just another potential might roll up on it or something and re-aggravate it. So what are some things you guys want to look at this week for this game? Korey, go ahead.
Maybe I just caught him on some bad plays, but I don't know. Mason McCormick kind of is making me a little nervous.
It feels like he hit a wall, Korey. Don't you think?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Where I really like him, but he's a rookie, and rookie walls happen. And this is not the week to be going against not the week to be going in with a slump. Chris Jones is the best D tackle in the NFL, and I really hope for McCormick's sake that either A, we give him a lot of help, or B, we are able to chop him a lot, not get flags and high-low him and do all these different things to try and keep it to a minimum, because that could be a game wrecker. Chris Jones has killed entire game plans before.
Absolutely. Will, what's matchup you're kind of looking at this?
I mean, there's nothing more important than does Chris Jones play in this game or not. Even some of the things you mentioned for the Chiefs offensive line. Yes, the Steelers edge rush should be able to do well against them, and I think they generally do. Wanya Morris actually looked pretty good at right tackle this previous game.
Mhm.
And I think Jawan Taylor's not 100%, so there's not a small chance that Wanya sees some time,
Okay.
at least splitting time as a right tackle. I just feel like with a great offensive mind like Andy Reid and with Patrick Mahomes, your effects of the edge rushers are really lessened because they got the plan. They're scheming so that the ball comes out quickly, and they're getting rid of the football quickly and smartly, and it's really that interior pressure that's more of a difference in the game. Tooney playing at left tackle might do a good job against Alex Highsmith, but you're missing that presence inside. So, yes, all those dominoes matter. I kind of feel like they're still going to figure out a way to at least this last two games, Philly and Baltimore. Towards the end of the game, especially the Steelers defense couldn't get off the field, right? They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop on third downs. And if there was ever a team you don't want to face when you can't stop the run, get off the field on third downs, it would be Kansas City.
Mhm.
So that even with the advantage at edge rusher, I'm not sure about if that matchup is enough because they have the counter to it. They have the counter punch for that specific thing. I think George Pickens is healthy enough to play, and he is not likely to re-injure himself. Then to me, the matchup that really matters becomes probably everyone's gonna say it's the other guy, but I'm gonna guess it's Joshua Williams matched up against George Pickens. That feels like a better matchup to me because he's a height, weight, speed guy that actually, when he's been healthy, has played pretty well for the Chiefs. And that would free McDuffie maybe to do some of the other stuff that he does close to the football or close to the line of scrimmage.
Mhm.
So I think a less than 100% George Pickens against Joshua Williams is actually a really good matchup. And I'm interested to see what Pickens can do now that, if he comes back in, he's probably going to be feeling the pressure to make plays, I would think.
Definitely, you would think so. I'll kind of flip it to the other side. I think Xavier Worthy is a very unique chess piece, and I think Pittsburgh is not very well equipped to handle it right now because we mentioned earlier just kind of the lack of speed on the defense. So, I'm terrified of him going deep. They have slowly acclimated him to what the Tyreek Hill role used to be for this offense, where he would be going deep more often. So I think he's a unique chess piece for Kansas City that's going to, just make things tough for our defense. He's one of those guys you always have to know where he is, just because any time he touches the ball, he could be gone. So this cannot be one of those weeks where, a week ago where we missed 20 tackles against Philadelphia. Like, this is not the week to show up and not tackle well, because these guys will make you pay for it. Even DeAndre Hopkins is still decent after the catch here and there. Travis Kelce, while it looks like he's lost a little bit of a step, he's still shifty. He can still get those extra yards. Noah Gray, honestly, has been starting to be a much bigger part of the offense when they go multiple tight ends. He's become that receiving threat at tight end, which is very dangerous when you have two tight ends out there, because it's like you're prepared for the run, but especially this team likes to send their tight ends out in routes and do a lot of creative stuff with them. So defense better be ready, because they've got a lot of unique little pieces that they can use. None of them are world beaters right now, but the collective unit, that Andy Reid likes to assemble is always a tough one. So I'll give it there. Yeah, any other matchups you guys feel like we need to highlight this week?
Well, I would say, Andy Reid versus Terrell Austin / Mike Tomlin.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers secondary, maybe better matchup. Andy Reid against the Steelers secondary, because it isn't the physical guys that Kansas City has. It's the fact that their execution is unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And they operate as like one unit. That's something you can't say about the Steelers secondary right now in their middle of the field coverage. They've been making mistakes, for weeks now between in communications after motion and with, when they have to make a sudden shift in what their coverage is based on formation. Their middle linebackers, their safeties, their cornerbacks, the communication between them is like we've had blown coverages, multiple blown coverages near the goal line in red zone, which is something that you just absolutely can't do. That to me is, I'm sure if you're Andy Reid and you're looking at tape, you don't have to do a bunch of special stuff against the Steelers on a 3-day work week. But I think you have enough stuff in your bag that you can see what they're not good at, and like, oh, we're going to do a lot of that because they didn't pass off guys very well. They ran into each other. They're still communicating while the ball is snapped. Like it's all the stuff that you can't get away with against a team that executes very well.
I've got a quick little question for you two. How many 300-yard games do you think Mahomes has had this season?
None.
Yeah, none.
He's had 2.
Has he really?
Yeah, had 2, which is kind of crazy to think about considering how recently we were in the height of the passing offense. What last year, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
But it's not really something I expected to roll across. He's been under 200 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and he's had 300 twice.
Wow. Yeah.
Amazing.
Like Will said, he's just an efficiency nightmare. Like he knows where to go with the ball and he usually gets there. So they love to just do dink and dunk down the field and drive teams mad.
By the way, guys, how many 300 passing yard, total passing yards have the Steelers had this season?
Oh,
Gonna go out on a limb and say Fields maybe had 1. But
Steelers have 1 this year. That was Russell Wilson's 400-yard plus game. The best that Justin Fields had was 280. So.
Wow. Okay. I felt like there was a game he got close. I didn't know. Probably 3.
And we had none last year, you might remember. So
we saw Kenny Pickett driving the Eagles' victory after Jalen Hurts' injury.
he grasped defeat out of the jaws of victory. Came in the game with a 14-point lead. Didn't quite have enough to make it to the finish line.
Right.
That's like being in a 100-yard, dash, 100-meter race where they let you off the line for 2 seconds before everybody else starts, and you still don't make it to the finish line first. That's
what's the point of a guy like Kenny Pickett being your backup if he can't sustain a 14-point lead? Like what? Why have that kind of quarterback backing up your star? What's the point?
Yeah.
Maybe they hoped that he would be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mentioning former Steelers, former Steeler Deontay Johnson, he ended up getting waived from Baltimore like the day before we played them, or the day that we played them. I can't remember. But unfortunately, if you thought he might return to Pittsburgh, that's no longer in the books, as he was claimed by the Houston Texans off of waivers, which is actually a very good pickup for them, considering that Tank Dell's done for the year again, unfortunately, with a torn left ACL now.
Worse than that.
Dislocated kneecap.
So it looked even worse than that. Like
I saw
fibula or whatever. Yeah. So
yeah. But so best of luck, buddy. Get better, because that's his second ACL in like a year almost. So
and he got shot in the off season, like stood up all of his own.
That's true. I forgot about that. So
you think your year is bad?
Right. But believe it or not, we're not the only game happening around the league this year. And actually you get another AFC North game on Christmas. The hated Baltimore Ravens that we just lost to have to go to the aforementioned Houston Texans and play them. So we're going to start off our pick'em segment with them this week, since they're part of the holiday spectacular football deal that Netflix is trying to push on us. Ravens are getting 5.5 headed to Houston. Will, I'll let you start off.
Wait, the Ravens are getting or giving 5.5?
Sorry. They are favored by 5.5. I said.
Okay. I think the Houston Texans are about even with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, I think that game against Houston could very well be Baltimore by a touchdown. So I will take the Ravens. I think the Ravens also have more at stake. Houston, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has already wrapped the division. And I think they also have very little chance of making it to the 3 seed. So this is probably a game for them. These next 2 weeks, they're probably not going to – they're pretty vanilla, I would think, especially against the team they might see in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, there is still a very small sliver of a chance that the Colts might challenge them for the division, but they would have to win both their last 2 games Houston would have to drop both their past 2 games and then have some other tiebreakers go down to aid them there. So yeah, you're pretty much on point. They've pretty much wrapped that up. Korey, what's your take on this game?
Yeah, I sure hope Houston wins. I'm not really that inspired to believe that right now. Because they already lost Diggs, right?
Yep, Diggs is gone.
Where they lost.
Yep.
So they lost Diggs, they lost Tank Dell. They've already been a little scattered with their offense compared to last year. So I'm with Will. I think they're about the same level as the Steelers, except they don't get the benefit of playing them 2 times every year. And so I would imagine it's about what the score was last time. I think it's a big Ravens win.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Honestly, because if the Ravens manage to win out, they're going to win the division. I think, especially if Pittsburgh were to drop, a game to the Chiefs this week, that puts them in the driver's seat because they will leapfrog us with one win that they'll get to 11 at a minimum with that. So Pittsburgh has to win this week for them to hold on to the division lead that we currently still have. So Pittsburgh, I think, needs to win out their last 2 games because I don't know who Baltimore finishes out with, but if they beat Houston, I think they play the Browns. Because the last week
it's Houston and the Browns, exactly. We have Kansas City and Cincinnati.
Right. So that they're going to have something left to play for. You've seen a lot of weeks at the end of the season where it's like, yeah, playoff seeding's already locked in. We'll play the starters for a half, and then we're going to rest everyone. But it's like that, they're playing for a chance to host a playoff game. So it's like they're going to play until the game's taken care of at least. So I like Baltimore too. They're just a better overall team at the end of the day. Offense is humming. Defense has been playing a lot better too. I thought that was very interesting. I caught it on the broadcast, but since they moved Kyle Hamilton off the line of scrimmage, their defense has been playing much better as a unit. So they found something that's working there. So I like Baltimore there. We'll keep in the division slightly as the Bengals are hosting the Broncos. Bengals are actually favored by 3 at home. Korey, I'll let you start off.
It was Broncos and Bengals.
Yeah, Broncos at Bengals. Bengals favored by 3.
I'm gonna go. That's a weird game. That is a weird game. I'm gonna go. It has to be Bengals. I mean, their defense has been so bad, but they got to start seeing dividends from this offense at some point. I think at this point, Joe Burrow's just letting it rip, and so I'm going to take the Bengals to cover. I think he's just because they're chasing down some record. I think they're going to keep letting it fly. So that's my prediction. I think they just air it out.
Well, also this game against Denver really, if they win this game, it really increases their playoff chances as well. Because this is they're basically chasing Denver, the Chargers, Indianapolis, and Miami. Indy and Miami sort of they have some games it seems more likely they might have trouble with, but Denver, if they win this game, their next week is going to be against a resting Kansas City team probably. So
it's true.
So this is this is their path to the playoffs. They win this game, they're in pretty in excellent shape. So I just feel like it's going to be quite a war there. I'll just take the better quarterback. I agree with you about the defense, but Denver's defense has been on paper and statistically pretty good defense, but I also feel like they have had their weeks where they didn't, they didn't look so hot. And against Joe Burrow and this offense, you can't have any margin for that, especially against the pass because they're really having an unbelievable season right now. Chase and Burrow in particular.
Yeah, I'll go with the Bengals here too. The Broncos just got shredded by Justin Herbert. I don't think it's going to be any different with Joe Burrow, especially at home too. This game is, in Cincinnati. I think that's a big deal. The crowd's going to be ready to rumble in the jungle and all that. Joe Burrow, like you mentioned, I was going to mention it. Joe Burrow's chasing some type of record, in yards, passing, and touchdowns and all that. So he's been playing great. Honestly, the offense has been playing great. Even with their, very average offensive line, but they have been slinging the ball. No one's been stopping them lately. The only thing that'll stop them is their defense. But their defense has been playing a little better. I wouldn't say great, but they're at least competing. As to where like a month ago was like, shit, do you guys want to get paid today or not? So
Man, if Cincinnati gets in the playoffs, like if they sneak in and they play Buffalo, that first round game is they're not going to have enough numbers on the scoreboard probably. Those two defenses are kind of and those two offenses are unbelievable. So that should be fun. Maybe. Otherwise, the Colts are going to get their way, and that'll be very exciting.
Yeah, let's get to a game out on the West Coast. Cardinals are traveling up to Los Angeles to play the Rams. Rams are now ahead in that division. They are 9-6 with about a 1-game lead about on everyone in that division, with some tiebreakers on top of that. So if the Cardinals want to sneak in, they are going to have to do it as they're going to have to win out to try to challenge the Rams there.
No, I'm sorry, unfortunately, Jeremy, their loss to Carolina last week eliminated them from playoff contention, which
really? Shoot, I did not.
Which a loss to Carolina should do. So yeah, that's bad. And the Rams winning eliminated San Francisco, so it's really just down to the Rams in Seattle right now.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll scratch that, but it's still a fun game to pick, so we're going to stick with it. The sporadic Cardinals are heading up to LA to take on the Rams. Rams are favored by 6. I'll start this one out. Rams have been playing some really good football late. They were my dark horse team to make the playoffs last year, and they actually went farther than I think a lot of people expected them. I think they're kind of in the same boat this year. Their defense is not great, but they do make plays here and there, and they can, they've got a good pass rush. They're not great against the run, but boy, that offense of Sean McVay just clicks, and they're all healthy right now too. Puka Nacua is back. It's funny because Cooper Kupp is kind of taking a back seat to him right now, but they're running the ball especially well with Kyron Williams. By the way, Kyron, keep it up. You're on my fantasy team, and I'm in the playoffs. Don't let me down.
That's what's important. You got your priorities straight, man.
Yeah, right. But I like the Rams here, and I'll take them to win. I don't know. 6 seems like a lot, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know if the Cardinals can't really play spoiler anymore. So I like the Rams to win, but not to cover. I think the Cardinals come to play. Will, throw it to you.
I think the Rams have more to play for. Obviously, that's for starters. And yes, I'm sure Arizona's only motivations in the last 2 weeks is going to be knocking somebody else down a peg or whatever. But the Rams, I think, despite their uneven play that on the road in New York, which is a far different cry from playing at home in LA for their style of football, I think that was a bit more of an aberration. So I like the Rams.
Gotcha. Korey?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Trey McBride comments, who's kind of like one of those leaders in the locker room, walking down the tunnel. He's like, "Oh, we blew it." Just seemed like the Cardinals were all not really meshing together at this stage. Seems like there might be a little bit of bad blood. So I'm not really inclined to believe that they're going to be the kind of team that pulls it together and starts playing like a team now that they're out. And I feel like it might just all crumble a little bit towards the end. I'm going with the Rams here.
Okay.
If we just get Marvin Harrison to play Call of Duty with Kyle Murray for a whole off season, things might change.
Yeah, their communication will be great then. Go right. Oh, he's hiding behind the barrel. Oh. But let's get one more game in here. Probably what a lot of people are going to consider the game of the week. Packers are heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. That division is very interesting, as the Lions and the Vikings are both tied at the top, 13-2. Lions currently have the tiebreaker to be on top. So Vikings are looking like the top wildcard spot, but the Packers might be able to challenge them if the Vikings were to lose here too. Or no, they won't. No, they won't. Excuse me. They're 3 games behind with only 2 plays, so that can't happen. But it still should be a really fun game regardless, even though both these teams have locked up their playoff spots pretty much already. Vikings are at home. They're favored by 1.5. Korey, I'll start with you.
Ooh, the Vikings are at home, right?
Yep, favored by 1.5. Yep.
And I'm looking at it now. The Vikings won earlier in the year in Lambeau, 31-29. So they won by 2. So this is about as tight as it gets. I don't know. It's long enough. He's a little injured now, I think, but I think I've picked against the Vikings every game, and they won every game, looking at their record, because I've been like, oh, Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold. Hey, he's just good this year, apparently. He's making it work. It'd be nice to, if we had a rookie come in and play like that, it'd be national headlines. So I guess, I just got to put a little respect on what he's doing. I don't really want to flip the. I'm gonna go with the Vikings here, just because they're at home. Can anyone catch up to the Packers in that wild card spot or no?
Pretty tough.
Yeah.
I think they have. I think that the fact that Arizona and San Francisco are eliminated means the only team that might be able to catch them would be like Atlanta or whoever loses the NFC South, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But even that would be a long shot. First of all, they'd have to lose. I mean, they play tonight, so it's possible they could make it closer by losing tonight against the. Sorry, I forgot who they're playing this week.
Yeah, they're playing the Saints tonight. So I guess that means they actually could theoretically catch them for the top wild card.
They can't catch Detroit or Minnesota because Detroit and Minnesota play next week or last week of the season. So
Gotcha.
so they one of those teams is not going to get to far enough down for Green Bay to get the division. They're out of the division.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with the Vikings just because I picked against them every game this year, and that means they probably gotta. This will be the week that they lose, but I'm going Vikings here to cover.
Quick question, Vikings related for you guys. Do you like JJ McCarthy enough to trade a first round pick for him?
No.
Yeah, me neither. But I'm saying that would be a guy, young quarterback, that's possibly going to be available. Like, man, if Sam Darnold wins a playoff game, I can't believe they'll let him go. They might, but that would be such a big risk.
I agree. Honestly, I think they'll end up franchise tagging him and make some team trade a pick for him. It's like they're not going to let him hit the open market without getting some return on it. They're not going to leave it up to a potential, let's hopefully get a third round comp pick for him type of guy right now.
But I'd be wary about trading for him anyway because he hasn't really shown this in the two other stops that he had, right? So it could be that it all clicked. Sorry, go Korey.
I mean, this is a fun little side conversation. I would imagine that something that would be appealing to both sides would be like a big contract that's like a 1 year, then plus 2 year, like then one team option, then one player option, or something funky like that, where it's big money, and then the team kind of gets to hedge their bet. Then QB contracts are going to be up. He gets to add on money. That third, something weird like that. Because, I mean, I can't see them necessarily wanting to extend him for 3 concrete years from now. But then he's probably going to laugh if they offer a franchise tag. Like, someone will pay me. Like, I'll just sit out, demand a trade. So, and that'll actually be especially if he wins a playoff game, that'll be something pretty interesting to watch because both sides have very legitimate reasons to want what they're going to want.
Yeah. Will, what's your take on this game?
I thought I already said.
Sorry if you did. I can't remember.
No, that's okay. Unless I'm confused about which game we're picking. Maybe
Minnesota Green.
Oh no, I guess I didn't say it. I was talking about Green Bay.
Yeah, since they're playing tonight still. Yeah.
Sorry, I got for some reason I got thinking about that again. I take the home team in every division, every matchup between these 3 teams. I would just take the home team. I think they're all pretty close to one another, especially as division opponents. They know each other. So I think I'm taking Minnesota this week. I'm taking Detroit next week. Detroit will end up winning the number 1 seed. By the way, that Philly loss, super costly.
Yeah, that was huge.
Almost undoubtedly cost them the number 1 seed because they don't have, to play much the next 2 weeks. And that fact that they had a 14-point lead and lost that game is just like, that's going to resonate for some time.
Not to mention the Cowboys seem to be playing for pride right now too. I'm not saying that they've turned a corner or whatever, but they're playing a lot better over the last month, ironically. I really like the Vikings this year. I don't know what it is. They kind of seem to have the magic formula this year too. On the NFC side. The games aren't always pretty. They're closer than they'd like them to be, but they're just finding ways to win games. It's just like that. Like with Kevin McConnell's year, the year before last, like his first year, like the Vikings were winning all these ridiculous 1-score games and no one knew how to do it. And then last year they fell back down to earth a little bit. And like in year 3, he's like refound the magic with honestly just a quarterback who's just doing what's asked of him. He's not going out there and trying to play hero ball and all that. He's just finding the open guy and slinging it. So he's playing really well right now. So I like the Vikings win. That takes us back to our 5-star Christmas Day matchup. The Chiefs, they are coming to Pittsburgh. Chiefs are favored by 3. Over-unders like 43.5, which is Will's like favorite number for Pittsburgh. If you've listened to the show in the past, that's always like been his number. But I don't know, with the George Pickens back, that might, I don't know. I think the over might be worth the stab there. But Will, I'll let you start off with this since Korey started in the last one.
Well, I like to, I'm fond of betting starting this segment by saying, bet the over, bet the under. I think the number's pretty good this week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume that Chris Jones doesn't play.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm in the perfect world. I shouldn't say doesn't play. I'm going to say Chris Jones plays, but doesn't play 100%. He doesn't, is rested a lot on a pitch count or whatever. So their defense is going to be a little bit more loose than it usually is. I actually love the Kansas City defense in big games, and I love Steve Spagnuolo in big games. And they just, man, they're so smart the way they're coached on offense and defense, and their teams execute very, very well. I think you watch this game, you see a contrast in terms of the sort of mental part of the game for these two squads. So maybe the Steelers can make up for that by playing like their season is on the line, because it sort of is. Because, the difference between getting a home playoff game and not is the difference between their season being a success or not, I think, at this point. They'd have to really steal one on, no matter who they go on the road to. So I think they'll play hard, and I think it's a close game. As I said earlier, I think the Houston Texans, without Tank Dell, and the Steelers are pretty close. And that was a 7-point game win for Kansas City at home. So I think this is probably something like Kansas City is a 4-point better team than the Steelers. And I just don't, I'm like, yes, some of those Steelers defensive backfield guys practice, but they were limited today. And you've only really got, tomorrow, or not even tomorrow. I mean, today was really it. Tomorrow is just a recovery day, and then they're going to play on Wednesday. So if they were only limited today, I'm not sure how, same way as I'm saying with Chris Jones, maybe they'll suit up and play because it's important, but might be tough. I'm going to say 24-20. The Chiefs win this game. I think that all the talk about the Chiefs is that, how they're not as good this year, and they're all these games are close, and they're getting all the breaks of the calls and so on and so forth. But I just see a team that wins, and they have that, secret sauce. And as they get closer to the end of the season in the playoffs, I think it's starting to click a little bit more. And I thought they really missed Isaiah Pacheco, but even getting him back, they're still rotating the other backs. They're still getting a maximum amount out of all the players that they have. All of the wide receivers and tight ends and running backs on their team, fullbacks even, are getting action, and they get the ball, and they're all involved, and makes a huge difference. Unless, you can not have Chris Jones and knock out Patrick Mahomes, I think this is a Chiefs victory. I mean, so it's like a lot of ifs for Christmas, a lot of presents to unwrap to make that happen.
Right.
By the way, one last thing. I said before the season started, I didn't think the Steelers were going to win any of these 3 games. The Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City in that 11 days. I just felt like that was a huge ask, and I'm sticking with it for now. Like I maybe they'll prove me wrong. They won some games this year I didn't think they were going to win. But I think that brutal stretch compared with the quality of opponents and time of year is just bad for them.
Yeah. Korey, you want to go next?
Yeah, they're never going to beat them twice, right? So if you hope to see the Chiefs again in the playoffs or something, I almost think that you kind of need to lose this one, and you can blame it on the short week, and you can say, oh, we're going to get hell, blah, 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 all the coach talk, because it's really hard to beat a team twice. And I don't think we're going to win this. I don't necessarily think we'll win a playoff game against them, but if we win this game, then I'll really think that we're going to lose a potential playoff game against them. So I can kind of live with the loss here. I think that we're going to kind of be able to roll around with them a little bit, but I could see like a late touchdown being a separator with some coaching blunder or bad set of timeouts or bad punt or something like that being the cause. I'm gonna say 28-17. Not too ridiculous of a score like last week. I can't predict something without a Steelers field goal in it. So
Of course
that's my score prediction.
He's edging up on the record, is he not? The
I
all-time.
already say with two made what did we score this past week? I thought he hit 2 field goals against Baltimore. Sound right? So he only needs 2 more to hit the NFL record then. I think he needed 4 coming into the game this past weekend. We could be wrong there though.
Yeah, it's close. Let's put it that way. It's been an amazing season for him. The Steelers MVP.
No doubt, no doubt. I would love a Christmas Day miracle, gentlemen. I really would. But the fact of the matter is the other side of the ball is just coached extremely well. And that's what I think it's going to fall down to at the end of the day. I think Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are going to be ready. I don't think it'll be, won't be a blowout because the Chiefs have not played perfect ball at all this year. But, coupled with, some Chiefs that dress in black and white. And, sorry, did I say that on the podcast? My bad. But it just feels like the Chiefs aren't going to lose at any point. It will take a Baltimore-led Lamar Jackson team or a Josh Allen-led Bills team, to put this team in the ground this year. And we're not anywhere close to that. It's going to take a team that can really put on the points, because that's when I think Kansas City might be a little more prone to mistakes, little extra holding, guys missing assignments on the line, So I hate to say it, but I don't think any of us are opening up a Christmas win or a Steelers win on Christmas this year. Score wise, oh man, I think we end up like losing by a touchdown. I'll go 23-17 maybe. The Chiefs eat 2 field goals out late where we need a touchdown to win, and a field goal isn't going to cut it, and we just don't. It just doesn't happen. So I like 23-17.
It's scary when I am the most optimistic of the 3 of us guys. But look, I've dragged you down to the depths, so I apologize.
Well, I think the only way we have a chance of winning is if our front 7 just abuses the Chiefs' offensive line. But like you said, they're going to be well coached to where they're going to get the ball out quick, so our pressure isn't going to get there. So I think at the end of the day, I'm taking Andy Reid to scheme stuff up to where that's not going to really phase them as much. Like if there was ever a week where I'd start blitzing guys up the middle to get Patrick Mahomes off his spot, this would be the week, like 10 days off the, high ankle injury, make him try to move around and really test it. That's what I'd try to do. And then at the same time, if there is no Chris Jones, I'd say, boy, I want to run the ball more and, kind of keep it out of Mahomes' hands too.
I mean, the guys they have behind Chris Jones are pretty good. I mean, I love it.
John Morton's good.
Yeah, and exactly. Both of them are really good players. What's that now?
Chenal is one of the best run stuffers in the league.
Yeah, he is.
And Wharton is like taking over games this year. And then they don't talk about Mike Dana, right? So it's like they got defensive line depth.
Mm-hmm.
So
George Karlaftis.
But Chris Jones is the sauce that moves around and obliterates your tackle and like stuff that most interior linemen can't do, right? So
yeah, very true.
Another guy that famously, I think I drafted him for the Steelers in our board draft. I love that kind of a disruptive interior player. Jeffrey Simmons, I drafted. Like these guys you're talking about that they need. Just feels like since Hargrave has left, they never really committed to
replacing him,
heavily investing in that guy. And it wouldn't surprise me if, with all the other stuff people are talking about, that ends up being the Steelers' first pick this year in the draft. I think they might see as a priority getting a game wrecker in the middle, unless they can get Hargrave back. Hargrave, I think, is a free agent.
So yeah, I can't remember, but he hasn't played at all this year because he tore an ACL in training camp. So for the 49ers, so that just one of the many injuries the 49ers have put up with this year. But well, thank you all for tuning into another episode here at the the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Spits of Smoking on the Message Board, joined by Will Masisak, Bradshaw to Ben, and Korey Karbowsky, Korey 39. I'll cross my fingers. Hopefully we get to open up a Steelers, win on Christmas, but I'm just not holding out my hope. I'd rather get it, we'll see. We'll see if we even open up a playoff win, because that's the ever elusive present this organization has been chasing for like a decade now. So,
Hey, I will settle for being able to open up Netflix and have it work. That would be a fine present. But anyway, happy Christmas to both you dudes and everybody out there listening and watching, and happy Hanukkah and Festivus, I think, is today. So enjoy your feats of strength, and I don't know, Jeremy, maybe we'll get a Steelers win, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But yep, Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas to all the listeners. Happy holidays. And I guess you'll have to wait to hear from us next year. I know. Terrible dad joke to end the episode, but I felt like I had to throw it in there. So here we go, Steelers.
All right, here we go, kids. Ciao.